Have you heard of ECHO's peer assessment feature? A peer assessment is an activity that allows students to evaluate classmates' performance using a rubric provided in ECHO by the teacher. From the homepage, click the editor icon located on the course card where you would like to create a peer assessment activity. Click the Add to Link and select Peer Assessment. When you are creating a peer assessment activity, there are a few steps you must go through. You need to add the activity title. I am going to put peer assessment in my activity title so students know that this is the peer assessment activity. You also have the ability to add a rubric. You can choose an existing NTN rubric, or you can, if you select empty, create your own rubric. I am going to use an existing rubric. I have the ability to now adjust the rubric. There are a lot of rows in this rubric. I am only going to choose to assess my kids or have my kids assess each other on 3 of these rows. This is early on in the project, so we are only going to focus on part of the rubric for now, and we'll do some scaffolding around the rest of it later. So see where these X's are. I'm just going to delete a few of these rows, reduce this rubric down to 3. I'm also going to go ahead and adjust the points. This tool automatically sets the points to 100 per row for the whole rubric. If I use 3 rows, that's 300 points, and I do not want this peer assessment to be worth that many. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust these points now. I think that 10 points per row is good. You also have the ability to adjust these points for each individual section of the rubric, but I like the way it auto-populated, so I'm just going to leave it. Now that I am done adjusting my rubric, it's completely worth 30 points now. Instead of 300, I'm going to click Save. You'll also need to adjust the following settings. Allow for self-assessment. This is a really cool feature. If you select Allow students to self-assess, you can then decide if you would like their self-assessment to reflect their grade. I most definitely would like their self-assessment to reflect their grade. You can also require student comments, hide student feedback, let students self-group, or assign to course groups. All of this will depend on how you want students to assess one another. Once you have all of your details filled out, you may click OK. Now the peer assessment activity has been created, and it will show up here in your editor tool of the course. If you'd like to adjust the gradebook settings, you can enter the editor tool next to the assignment, and you can click the settings tab here. Here you will be able to adjust your points possible, as well as your outcomes. And you also have the ability to either delete or edit the rubric. Once you have your gradebook settings how you'd like, you can click Save. Okay, now the peer assessment has been created from the teacher. Let's see what it looks like from the student's perspective when they are going in to complete the peer assessment. We're going to log in as a student, and we are going to complete the peer assessment for our group members. Okay, the student will log in, and they will go into the course that has the peer assessment activity. You, the teacher, will tell the students which assignment they are peer assessing on. It could be a paper, an ECHO assignment, a group assignment, a document, or anything you want peer feedback on. The student will click on the peer assessment activity. If you, the teacher, did not assign this peer assessment to a specific group of students, which I did not, the student will choose their partner or group of people they are assessing. I chose to let the students self-group because they're high school students. They know who their group members are. So Christy is going to add all of her group members. She's going to add herself because I allowed for self-assessment. And she's going to go ahead and go through and add her other group members. Okay, so here are all of Christy's group members. When you have all your group members added, the student will then begin assessing. They can start with their self or start with their group mates. When they click on a student, this is where they will complete the peer assessment. So here's the rubric. They will fill it out for each part of the rubric, and they also have the ability to type in feedback. So Christy might say, Matthew was great. He could grow in arguing his ideas. Okay, and she also has the ability to leave a private note to me, the teacher. And when she is all done, she can hit save. And she'll go through and she will do that for every single one of her group members. And she will not be allowed to submit until she has completed this for every member. When the student has completed, they will go ahead and hit submit. Just because a student has submitted a peer assessment does not mean that it is available for viewing from the other students. The teacher has to go in and review the peer assessment and approve the student's feedback before others can see it. This is a great feature because it allows the teacher to do some damage control, as well as see the feedback given by all the group members for one student at a time before she submits the grade. Now that the peer assessment has been completed, let's take a look at a completed peer assessment that needs to be reviewed from the teacher's perspective. So now I'm going to log out as Christy, and I'm going to log back in as Mrs. Johnson. I'm going to enter the grade book for that course that had the peer assessment. I'm going to click right on the gradebook icon. Come up here to activities, and I am going to click on peer assessment. Here I can see that 5 students have completed the peer assessment. They're all in the same group together. I can see the average score that they received from their teammates, and I can see the average score that they gave their teammates. Let's check out this peer assessment for Christy. Right away, right here, I can see the average score that Christy received from her peers. Or I can see the score after it has been averaged from every peer. I can view the feedback that she gave herself, and I can see the feedback that her peers gave her in each category of the rubric. This allows me to compare feedback from herself and her peers to see if there are any outliers. So here's the first section of the rubric, and here's all the feedback. Here's the second section and all the feedback. Here's the third and all the feedback. So let's just take a look at the first one here and see how that feedback compares as a whole. So here's Christy's self-reflective feedback. Lonnie said Christy was a great group leader. Matthew said she's a great group leader. Nicholas says no one likes to listen to Christy. She is bossy and a know-it-all. Christy is great. She always comes up with good ideas, and she's willing to listen and to support others. So right away, I can see that Christy has a lot of great peer feedback, and she has one outlier. So I'm going to keep an eye on Nicholas's feedback just to make sure that it's not harmful or to make sure that it accurately assesses Christy. I can also see private notes that were written about Christy. So right here I can see that, and only I can see this. I can see that Christy wrote herself a private note, that Lonnie did, and that Matthew did. If I keep on scrolling down, I can also see all feedback given by each group member. So here's all feedback given from Christy to herself. Here's all feedback about Christy from Lonnie. All feedback about Christy from Matthew, all feedback about Christy from Nicholas and from Roseanne. So now I have the choice to decide if the feedback her peers gave her will go toward her grade for this assignment, and if I will allow Christy to see what her peers have said. Under each peer's assessment and underneath of their name, you see this little box that says exclude. If I do not feel the feedback is appropriate or accurately assesses Christy, I have the option to exclude this feedback from Christy's view and her grade. So I'm going to include Christy's peer assessment of herself. She gave herself a reasonable grade, and she explained why she gave herself that grade. Lonnie gave her a 30 out of 30. All of her comments are nice. Matthew, same thing. I'm going to include that. Nicholas gave her a 12 out of 30, which is a huge outlier compared to what everybody else gave her. Let's check out the feedback. No one likes Christy. All she does is talk the whole time. I don't like the norms. I wasn't a part of creating them. I'm not following them. Christy monopolized the whole process. So this is not accurately assessing Christy compared to what her other peers wrote. So I'm going to choose to, and his comments are not nice. So I'm going to choose to exclude Nicholas's score from Christy's grade, as well as his comments from her view. Roseanne gave her a good review and gave her a nice comment, so we will include hers. So now I'm going to come back up to the top, and now I can see, if you remember at the beginning, Christy's score was a 26 because Nicholas gave her a poor grade. Now it's a 29.5, and the reason it's not perfect is because Christy was kind of a little bit hard on herself. So because now I've gone through the whole review process, I've excluded those who don't need to be a part of the grade and comments that Christy does not need to see, I'm going to go ahead and type in her final grade and hit submit. Submitting this grade will now allow Christy to see her grade as well as the feedback her peers have left her. One more step. Let's log back in as Christy and check out her final grade, so we can see what it looks like for her once it has been submitted and graded by the teacher. So again, we're going to click that gradebook icon on that course that had that peer assessment. We're going to click on grades. Here's the peer assessment. You can see her grade, 29.5 out of 30. If Christy wants to get in there and check out what her peers have said, she sure can. And here it is. She can see the score she received in each category, and she can see what her peers have said about her. And she can also see the feedback that she gave her peers. And there you have it. This is how you create a peer assessment and what it looks like and how it operates from a student's view and a teacher's view.